There are people walking through life right now who smile in public, laugh in conversations, go to work every morning, and still feel completely exhausted inside. Not physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. The kind of exhaustion sleep cannot fix. The kind that slowly drains your emotions, your motivation, your hope, and eventually your identity. And the terrifying part is this: most people never notice it happening because mental exhaustion does not arrive like a storm, it arrives silently. One thought at a time, one disappointment at a time, one sleepless night at a time, until one day a person wakes up feeling emotionally numb to life itself. Tonight's story is about a man who reached that point and discovered something powerful in the darkness. Not happiness, not success, but inner peace. His name was Adrian Cole. At 34 years old, Adrian looked like a successful man from the outside. He lived in a modern apartment in Chicago. He worked as a senior financial analyst for a respected company. He dressed well, spoke confidently, and carried himself with professionalism. People admired him. Co-workers believed he had his life together. Friends envied his discipline. Family members proudly talked about his career during gatherings, but nobody knew the truth. Every morning, Adrian woke up exhausted before the day even began, not because of physical labor, because his mind never stopped working. At night, while the city slept beneath the cold lights of skyscrapers, Adrian lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations from years ago. Mistakes, regrets, embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of losing everything, fear of disappointing people. His thoughts moved endlessly like an invisible machine he could no longer control. And slowly, the pressure began destroying him. At work, he smiled while feeling emotionally empty. During conversations, he nodded without listening. Food lost its taste. Music lost its emotion. Life lost its color. The worst part was that nobody noticed, because mentally exhausted people often become experts at pretending they are okay. One winter evening, after another 13-hour workday, Adrian sat alone inside his apartment while rain hit the windows softly. The room was silent except for the ticking of an old clock. He stared at his reflection in the dark television screen and suddenly realized something terrifying. He could not remember the last time he truly felt alive, not productive, not busy, alive. That realization broke something inside him. For the first time in years, Adrian admitted the truth to himself. He was mentally drowning. The next morning, he called in sick to work for the first time in almost 4 years. His manager sounded shocked. "Are you okay?" she asked. Adrian paused before answering, and for some reason, he could not say yes. Instead, he quietly replied, "I don't know anymore." That single sentence haunted him the entire day because deep down, he realized his life had become survival instead of living. Later that evening, Adrian wandered aimlessly through the city streets while snow drifted slowly from the dark sky. People rushed around him carrying coffee cups, talking on phones, chasing deadlines, staring into glowing screens. Everyone looked busy, everyone looked tired, and suddenly Adrian wondered, how many people are secretly suffering just like me? Eventually, he entered a small bookstore to escape the cold. The store was quiet, warm, peaceful. An elderly man sat near the back, reading beside a dim lamp. Adrian wandered through the philosophy section absent-mindedly until one book caught his attention. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He opened it randomly and read a single line: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Something about those words stopped him completely. Not because they sounded motivational, because they sounded true. For years, Adrian had tried controlling everything: people's opinions, future outcomes, workplace expectations, relationships, success, and in the process, he had completely lost control over the one thing that mattered most: his own mind. The old man near the lamp noticed Adrian staring at the page. Without looking up, he quietly said, "Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the world instead of controlling themselves." Adrian looked at him carefully. The man closed his book and smiled gently. "You look tired," he said. "Not physically, mentally." Those words hit Adrian harder than expected because for the first time in years, someone saw through the mask. Over the next few weeks, Adrian returned to the bookstore repeatedly. The old man's name was Samuel. He had once been a psychology professor before retiring many years earlier, but more importantly, he understood suffering. Samuel never gave dramatic motivational speeches. Instead, he asked uncomfortable questions. Why do you tie your worth to productivity? Why are you terrified of disappointing people? Why do you punish yourself for being human? At first, Adrian struggled to answer because mentally exhausted people rarely stop long enough to understand their own pain. They simply continue functioning until collapse becomes unavoidable. One evening, Samuel handed Adrian a notebook. "Write down every thought that steals your peace," he said. Adrian laughed slightly. "That would take forever." Samuel nodded calmly. "Exactly." That night, Adrian sat alone, writing for hours. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of aging, fear of not being enough, fear of wasting life, fear of being forgotten. Page after page filled with invisible emotional weight he had carried silently for years. And for the first time, he realized something shocking. Most of his suffering came not from reality itself, but from constant psychological warfare inside his own mind. Samuel later explained something Adrian would never forget. The human mind becomes dangerous when left undisciplined. Modern life feeds anxiety constantly. Social media creates comparison. News creates fear. Work culture glorifies exhaustion. Society rewards burnout and calls it ambition. And slowly, people become mentally sick while pretending they are successful. Adrian began noticing it everywhere. Co-workers bragged about never sleeping. Friends laughed about being emotionally numb. People called constant stress normal adult life. But Samuel rejected that idea completely. Being constantly exhausted is not a badge of honor, he told Adrian one snowy evening. It is a warning sign. Over time, Samuel introduced Adrian to Stoic philosophy. Not the fake version people post online beside luxury cars. The real version, the kind built through silence, discipline, suffering, and self-awareness. Samuel taught him that mental peace requires boundaries. Boundaries with work, boundaries with toxic people, boundaries with overthinking, boundaries with endless self-criticism. Most importantly, Samuel taught Adrian to separate what he could control from what he could not. You cannot control every outcome, Samuel said. You can only control your actions, your character, and your response. At first, Adrian resisted this idea. He believed constant worrying protected him somehow, but eventually, he understood the truth. Anxiety had never protected him. It had only exhausted him. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, Adrian changed. Not dramatically, quietly. He stopped checking emails late at night. He spent more time walking without headphones. He learned to sit in silence without panic. He stopped apologizing for needing rest. For the first time in years, his mind began slowing down. And with that silence came something unexpected: emotion. One spring morning, Adrian sat beside Lake Michigan watching sunlight move across the water. The air felt calm, birds drifted above the city skyline, and suddenly, tears filled his eyes. Not from sadness, from relief, because after years of mental exhaustion, he finally felt present again. In that moment, Adrian realized something heartbreaking. Most people are not lazy. Most people are overwhelmed. They are carrying invisible emotional weight every single day while pretending to be fine. And eventually, that pressure crushes them silently. Months later, Adrian returned to the bookstore and found Samuel organizing old books slowly. "You look different," Samuel said. Adrian smiled softly. "I feel different." Samuel nodded knowingly. Then he asked one final question: "What changed?" Adrian thought quietly for several seconds before answering. "I stopped trying to survive life and started learning how to live it." Samuel smiled, because that was the real lesson all along. Stoicism was never about becoming emotionless. It was about becoming mentally free, free from endless overthinking, free from emotional slavery, free from the exhausting need to control everything. As time passed, Adrian's career improved naturally. His relationships became healthier. His anxiety decreased. His mind became calmer, not because life suddenly became easy, but because he finally understood something mentally exhausted. People often forget. Rest is not weakness. Silence is not failure. And peace is more valuable than endless achievement. Near the end of the year, Adrian walked again through the busy streets of Chicago during another cold winter night. The city still moved with the same chaos. People still rushed endlessly beneath glowing lights. But this time, something inside him remained still. The noise no longer controlled him. And for the first time in many years, he no longer felt mentally trapped inside his own mind. Because true healing begins the moment a person stops treating themselves like a machine and starts treating themselves like a human being. That is the hidden pain of mentally exhausted people. They spend so much time trying to survive the world that they forget to protect themselves from it. And maybe the greatest Stoic lesson of all is this: a calm mind is not created by controlling life. It is created by learning when to let go. So if your mind feels heavy tonight, if you are emotionally tired in ways nobody understands, if you feel pressure silently crushing you every day, remember this carefully. You're not weak for feeling exhausted. You are human. And sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is finally slow down long enough to heal. Some people do not scream when they are suffering. They do not beg for attention. They do not explain their pain. They do not tell the world they are mentally falling apart. Instead, they become silent. And that silence is dangerous because mentally broken people often suffer in ways nobody can see. They smile during conversations. They go to work. They answer messages slowly. They say, "I'm fine," even when their mind feels like a battlefield. But deep inside, something has already collapsed. Tonight's story is about a man who slowly disappeared inside his own mind, while the world continued treating him like everything was normal. And like many mentally broken people, nobody noticed until it was almost too late. His name was Ethan Carter. At 31 years old, Ethan lived alone in a small apartment in Boston. From the outside, his life looked stable. He had a decent job in software engineering. He paid his bills on time. He stayed polite around coworkers. He rarely caused problems. People described him as quiet, mature, calm, but the truth was darker than anyone realized. Ethan was mentally exhausted long before he became mentally broken. And the frightening part about emotional collapse is that it rarely happens all at once. It happens slowly, one disappointment at a time, one betrayal at a time, one sleepless night at a time, until eventually silence replaces personality. Years earlier, Ethan had been full of energy. He laughed loudly. He trusted people easily. He believed hard work guaranteed happiness. But life slowly changed him. His father died unexpectedly when Ethan was 24. A long relationship ended after years of emotional manipulation. His closest friend betrayed him financially during a business project. And after enough emotional damage, Ethan stopped talking about his feelings completely, not because he healed, because he no longer believed anyone truly cared. That is what many people misunderstand about mentally broken individuals. Most of them were once emotionally open people. Life simply taught them silence. At work, Ethan became quieter every year. Co-workers noticed he rarely joined conversations anymore. Lunch breaks became isolated. Phone calls became shorter. His apartment became darker and quieter. Some nights he sat for hours in complete silence, staring at the city lights outside his window, not thinking, just existing. And eventually, even emotions became exhausting. That is one of the hidden symptoms of a mental collapse. A person becomes emotionally numb because feeling everything became too painful. One cold November evening, Ethan received a message from his younger sister. "You never talk anymore. Are you okay?" He stared at the message for several minutes without replying because the truth was complicated. How do you explain a broken mind to someone who still feels normal? How do you describe emotional exhaustion when your pain has no visible wound? Eventually he typed, "Just tired." But deep down, Ethan knew it was more than tiredness. He no longer recognized himself. Weeks later, during another exhausting workday, Ethan made a small mistake during an important presentation. Nothing catastrophic, but his manager criticized him publicly in front of the team. Most people would have moved on within hours, but mentally exhausted minds process pain differently. That night, Ethan replayed the moment repeatedly. Again. His mind attacked him constantly. You're failing. You're becoming weak. You're useless. You disappoint everyone. At 3:17 a.m., unable to sleep, Ethan walked through the empty streets beneath freezing rain. The city looked lifeless, and for the first time in years, he admitted something terrifying to himself. He felt emotionally disconnected from life, not suicidal, not dramatic, just empty. And strangely, emptiness frightened him more than sadness ever had, because sadness still feels human. Emptiness feels like disappearing. Eventually, Ethan wandered into a small 24-hour diner near the edge of the city. Only one other customer sat inside, an older man reading quietly beside the window. Ethan ordered coffee and sat alone. The old man glanced at him briefly before speaking. You carry yourself like a man fighting invisible wars. Ethan looked up slowly. Most people ignored him these days. But somehow, this stranger saw directly through him. Ethan forced a small smile. You don't even know me, the man nodded calmly. I know exhaustion when I see it. Something about the man's voice felt strangely peaceful. Not pity, understanding. Over the next several nights, Ethan returned to the diner repeatedly. The old man's name was Victor, a retired philosophy professor, but more importantly, someone who had survived suffering himself. Victor never pressured Ethan to speak, and strangely, that made Ethan trust him more. One night, Victor asked quietly, "Why do mentally broken people become silent?" Ethan shrugged. "Because nobody listens." Victor shook his head gently. "No, they become silent because explaining pain becomes exhausting." That sentence hit Ethan harder than expected, because it was true. After enough disappointment, many people stop expressing pain entirely. Not because the pain disappears, because repeating it changes nothing. Victor slowly introduced Ethan to Stoic philosophy, not the fake internet version filled with empty quotes, the real version, the version built for surviving emotional chaos. Victor explained that Stoicism teaches people how to endure suffering without allowing suffering to destroy their identity. Pain is unavoidable, Victor said one snowy night, but becoming consumed by pain is different. At first, Ethan resisted these ideas. He believed emotional damage permanently changes people, and in some ways, it does. But Victor explained something important. Broken people are not weak people. In fact, many mentally broken individuals are carrying more psychological weight than anyone around them realizes. Trauma, loneliness, disappointment, fear, emotional isolation, and still, they continue surviving quietly. That takes strength. Over time, Ethan began understanding why Stoics valued silence so deeply. Silence allows observation. Silence reveals truth. Silence protects energy. But there is a difference between peaceful silence and painful silence. Peaceful silence heals. Painful silence isolates. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please subscribe now and give the video a like and share it. And Ethan had trapped himself inside painful silence for years. One evening, Victor handed Ethan a small notebook. "Write honestly," he said. "No performance, no pretending." At first, Ethan struggled. He had spent years suppressing emotions, but eventually words began pouring onto the pages. Anger toward life, fear of failure, resentment toward people who abandoned him, exhaustion from pretending to be okay. Page after page revealed the truth. Ethan was not emotionless. He was emotionally overwhelmed, and for the first time in years, he stopped judging himself for it. That moment became the beginning of healing, not dramatic healing, quiet healing, the kind that happens slowly through self-awareness. Weeks later, Ethan noticed small changes. He slept better. He walked outside more often. He stopped forcing fake conversations. He spent less time chasing approval. Most importantly, he stopped viewing sensitivity as weakness. Victor eventually told him something that changed his perspective forever. The world often breaks deep people first. Because deep people feel everything intensely. They think deeply, love deeply, worry deeply, and without emotional discipline, that intensity can become self-destruction. That is why Stoicism matters. Not to eliminate emotion, but to prevent emotion from controlling your life completely. Months later, Ethan sat again inside the same diner during another winter storm. Snow moved slowly beyond the windows while soft jazz played quietly overhead. Victor looked at him carefully and smiled. "You're speaking more these days." Ethan smiled slightly. "Maybe I'm finally learning that silence should protect peace, not hide pain." Victor nodded proudly, because that was the lesson all along. Mentally broken people stay silent not because they have nothing to say, but because life taught them that vulnerability can become dangerous. And yet healing begins the moment someone finally feels safe enough to stop pretending. Near the end of winter, Ethan walked through Boston as snow melted slowly across the sidewalks. For the first time in years, his mind felt lighter. Not perfect, not completely healed, but no longer trapped. And as the cold wind moved through the city streets, Ethan realized something powerful. The strongest people are not those who never break. The strongest people are those who quietly rebuild themselves after breaking. That is the hidden truth behind silence. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is survival. And maybe the greatest Stoic lesson of all is this: a wounded mind does not heal through force. It heals through understanding, patience, discipline, and peace. So if someone around you suddenly becomes quiet, look carefully, because some people are fighting battles inside their mind that words can no longer explain. Your mind can become your greatest weapon or your worst prison. And for millions of people, the prison is invisible. It looks like replaying conversations at 2 a.m., imagining worst case scenarios, overanalyzing small mistakes, fearing things that have not even happened yet. This is the silent destruction of overthinking. It does not attack the body first. It attacks peace, slowly, quietly, repeatedly. Until one day, a person becomes mentally exhausted from fighting battles that never even existed. Tonight's story is about a man whose own thoughts nearly destroyed him, and the Stoic philosophy that finally saved his mind. His name was Daniel Mercer. At 29 years old, Daniel lived in New York City, surrounded by noise, ambition, and endless pressure. From the outside, he looked intelligent and successful. He worked in digital marketing for a large company. He dressed professionally. He spoke carefully. People trusted him. But inside his mind, chaos never stopped. Daniel overthought everything, every text message, every facial expression, every social interaction, every mistake. If someone replied late, he assumed they were angry. If his boss sounded serious, he feared losing his job. If a friend became distant, he blamed himself immediately. His brain constantly searched for danger even when none existed. And over time, this mental habit slowly poisoned his life. At night, Daniel rarely slept peacefully. His mind replayed embarrassing moments from years ago, conversations, failures, regrets, missed opportunities. The past haunted him. At the same time, the future terrified him. What if I fail? What if people secretly dislike me? What if I never become successful enough? What if everything collapses? The questions never ended. And eventually, Daniel became mentally exhausted from carrying his own thoughts. That is the hidden danger of overthinking. The mind stops becoming a tool and starts becoming a weapon against itself. One rainy evening after work, Daniel sat inside a crowded subway train, staring blankly at the reflection in the dark window. People around him scrolled through phones silently while exhaustion filled the train like invisible smoke. And suddenly Daniel realized something disturbing. He could not remember the last peaceful day he experienced inside his own mind. Not one day without anxiety, not one day without mental noise, not one day without fear. That realization frightened him deeply, because he understood something most overthinkers eventually discover. The world outside was not destroying him. His own mind was. Weeks later, Daniel's anxiety became worse. Small decisions became exhausting. He reread emails 10 times before sending them. He analyzed every word people said to him. He imagined rejection constantly, and slowly his confidence disappeared. Overthinking destroys confidence because a person eventually stops trusting themselves. One Friday night, Daniel canceled plans with friends and stayed alone in his apartment. Rain hit the windows softly while the city lights flickered outside. He sat in darkness for hours thinking about everything wrong in his life. The more he thought, the worse he felt. And the worse he felt, the more he thought. That cycle became psychological torture. At around midnight, unable to tolerate the noise in his head anymore, Daniel left his apartment and wandered through the cold streets aimlessly. Eventually, he entered a small bookstore cafe near the edge of Manhattan. The atmosphere felt strangely calm. Soft jazz played quietly. Books covered the walls. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Near the back sat an older man reading beside a lamp. Daniel ordered coffee and sat alone nearby. After several minutes, the old man looked at him calmly and said, "You think too much." Daniel looked startled. "Excuse me?" The man smiled slightly. "You carry the expression of someone arguing with his own mind." Those words hit Daniel immediately, because they were true. The old man introduced himself as Elias, a retired philosophy teacher. But unlike most people, Elias understood mental suffering deeply. Over the next several weeks, Daniel returned to the cafe repeatedly. And slowly, conversations with Elias began changing the way he viewed his mind. One evening, Elias asked him, "Do you know why overthinking becomes dangerous?" Daniel shrugged tiredly. "Because it creates anxiety?" Elias nodded. "Yes, but more importantly, because it disconnects people from reality." Daniel frowned slightly. Elias continued, "Overthinkers spend more time inside imagined problems than real life itself." That sentence stayed in Daniel's mind for days, because he realized most of his suffering came from assumptions, fears, and imagined scenarios, not reality. Reality was often manageable, but imagination became catastrophic. Elias introduced Daniel to Stoic philosophy, especially the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. The Stoics believed the human mind creates unnecessary suffering when left undisciplined. "You cannot control every thought entering your mind," Elias explained, "but you can control whether you entertain it." That idea changed everything. For years, Daniel believed every anxious thought deserved attention. But Stoicism taught him something powerful. Not every thought is truth. Some thoughts are fear. Some thoughts are insecurity. Some thoughts are emotional noise. And mentally strong people learn to observe thoughts without becoming controlled by them. At first, Daniel struggled with this practice. His mind constantly searched for certainty. But Elias warned him, overthinking is the desperate attempt to control an uncontrollable future. That realization was painful, because Daniel finally understood the truth. His anxiety was not intelligence. It was fear disguised as preparation. One afternoon, Elias gave Daniel a simple exercise. Sit alone for 10 minutes every day without distraction. No phone, no music, no television, just silence. At first, Daniel hated it. His thoughts attacked him immediately: regret, fear, self-criticism. But gradually, something surprising happened. The more he observed his thoughts calmly, the weaker they became, because thoughts gain power through emotional reaction. Stoicism teaches observation instead of panic. Weeks passed. Slowly, Daniel changed. He stopped rereading messages obsessively. He stopped seeking constant reassurance. He stopped imagining disasters every hour. For the first time in years, his nervous system began calming down. One evening, Elias asked him, "What changed?" Daniel thought quietly before answering. "I stopped believing every thought my mind produces." Elias smiled proudly, because that was the real lesson. The human mind is powerful, but undisciplined thinking becomes self-destruction. Modern life encourages overthinking constantly. Social media creates comparison. News creates fear. Work culture creates pressure. People become addicted to worry because worry creates the illusion of control. But Stoicism teaches something different. Peace comes not from controlling every outcome, but from accepting uncertainty calmly. Months later, Daniel walked again through New York City during another rainy evening. The streets remained noisy. Life remained unpredictable. Problems still existed. But something inside him had changed. His mind no longer controlled him completely. For the first time in years, silence existed inside his thoughts. Not permanent silence, but enough peace to breathe again. And standing beneath the glow of the city lights, Daniel finally understood something life-changing. Overthinking does not protect your future. It steals your present. That is the hidden tragedy of the anxious mind. People spend years mentally preparing for disasters that never arrive, while missing the life happening directly in front of them. Stoicism offers another path. Pause. Observe. Accept uncertainty. Focus only on what you control. Because peace is not found by solving every possible future problem. Peace is found when the mind finally stops fighting imaginary wars. And maybe the greatest Stoic truth of all is this: a calm mind is stronger than a fearful imagination. So if your thoughts feel heavy tonight, if your mind never stops racing, if anxiety constantly steals your peace, remember carefully, not every thought deserves your attention. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is simply let the thought pass.